most people don't realize what's actually happening because it's happening so slowly. They're typically finding ways to adjust to what's going on, and the further we get into the future, 2021, I'm thinking, to be honest with you, somewhere between 2022. I'm thinking 2022 is going to be a year that it's like a set of balances and scales. I think that 2022 is where you're going to see the scales just kind of tip pretty dip. It's going to kind of like really do a big dip. And it's at that point, I believe people's going to wake up and say, oh my, I need this. And I think that what we're going to run into is this may not be available at that time.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm with Danny King. You already know his channel, Deep South Homestead, but did you know he had a website too, deepsouthhomestead.com? You know the YouTube channel, but inside there's an enormous amount of resources to dig into with educational videos. There's also an enormous amount of images about the farm, what kind of produce, vegetables they're growing, the greenhouse off the back, which you can do also on your house. If you have some wood and some different, you could use regular plastics, laminated plastics, high-tech plastics, whatever it is, to create a greenhouse that's coming off your actual structure. It's a wealth of information. So, you know, Danny and I have been trying to contact for a while to get something together, and I am so happy that you're here today. If the global economy has a big downshift, as is predicted in 2020 after the elections here in the US coming up, into 2021, that same awakeness period, you know, if the stores aren't revolving on credit and that credit's not available, just think 2009 again, 2010, where everything kind of locked up. How are you going to get all these supplies in there? I mean, these are the kind of solutions that we need, is doing something yourself so you can get away from that reliance on the supply chain and the store itself. Because I would also envision the choices, the amount of choices of foods, goods is going to start to diminish. Not greatly in the beginning, but you're going to start to see, instead of 5 choices, you'll see 3. And when people will probably really notice is that when there's only 2 choices, like, hey, where'd the other ones go? I used to remember all these other choices, non-availability, spreading things across shelves. And I don't care if it's from like a home store or a garden center all the way to your supermarket. It seems like they get one thing and spread it around all over the shelf so it looks like it's full, but it's really the same one thing all over the place. So the better and more we can get off that supply chain reliance, I think, is the way we need to go. You thinking about, what do you think about the supply chain here if people can't get, or what do you think might disappear out of the supply chain, or what are you seeing right now regionally or around your area that not there, more difficult to get? Something about the supply chain in itself, the delivery from point A to point B, so you can get these things and put in your garden or on your land.
Here right now, if we like this year, I had to add some zinc to my place. We're noticing that they have to order zinc. If I need zinc, it has to be ordered. Pretty much everything else is pretty much available at the moment. I think you probably hit the nail on the head when you started talking there about, and I'm going to use the word trickle down effects, because I believe that most people don't realize what's actually happening because it's happening so slowly. They're typically finding ways to adjust to what's going on, and the further we get into the future, 2021, I'm thinking, to be honest with you, somewhere between 2022. I'm thinking 2022 is going to be a year that it's like a set of balances and scales. I think that 2022 is where you're going to see the scales just kind of tip pretty dip. It's going to kind of like really do a big dip. And it's at that point, I believe people's going to wake up and say, oh my, I need this. And I think that what we're going to run into is this may not be available at that time. Because here we're noticing in our local stores, when we go to purchase other things other than food, I will make a stroll up and down some of the aisles just to see what's going on, you know, take a look, may take a phone picture here and there or something other. The junk food aisles are packed to the hilt. Things like cookies and cereals and chips and all this kind of stuff is packed to the hilt. But when I get over to quote unquote stuff that is supposed to be better for you, things like flours and sugars and stuff like that, I'm noticing that the whole front row of the shelf is full, but back behind it is empty. And a lot of the different, like you mentioned there, a lot of the different varieties that we've been used to, because I have a gluten issue, and because of that, I have to purchase things of a specific nature. And we're noticing that a lot of those things, I'll ask the store manager, I'm like, where is this gone? Because y'all used to carry this. And he says, well, it's we don't no longer carry it because there just wasn't a high enough demand for it. So we have to look at things that we're selling on a more, we're selling more of, let's just put it that way. So, we're cutting those kind of things out. And I'm saying, well, that's a polite way, I guess, of saying we can't get it, I reckon.
I would agree with that.
I would agree that
excuse. I think we're going to be fed more and more excuses in the media and also by store managers.
Yeah, the store managers are, let's just say this, a lot of them are puppets on a string because they say what they're told to say. And they may not be intending to do it, but that's what they have to do. I've learned that because of some of them that I know personally. But, we're noticing that a lot of the canned goods, stuff like this, is not as readily available as some of the others are. And this is where my biggest issue right now with everything, I guess, is that I noticed, and this is not off track, but it's going to sound like it is that the UN is in a frantic mode to vote in, I'm going to use the word blockchain because they're frantically looking at blockchain, that all countries should switch over to blockchain. Because, David, what it is about tracking. Once you go to blockchain currency, everything that you and I purchase can be tracked. And they know what every individual person on the face of the earth is purchasing. They know what you're doing. It's just, there's no secret anymore. There's a cashless society there that puts you into the hands of, I'm going to say, the enemy, I suppose. And I don't like that, because what happens is when you get to a blockchain society, if I want to go to the grocery store and I want to say I'm not a prepper, or I am a prepper, let's just say I am a prepper and I'm not a homesteader or something to that nature, and I'm like, oh, they've got, they just got a shipment of sugar in, and I really could use a lot of sugar to store up for the future, and you go purchase, say, I want 5 25-pound bags of sugar, and you go up there where your credit card automatically declines 3 of them because you're only permitted to have 2, then when that starts happening, and which it has already, let me say this, in a lot of places in the country it's already started happening, that's when people's eyes are going to begin to be opened up, and they're going to actually say, wow, my ability to purchase is being limited now. And they're going to realize what's happened to them. So this is in the very near future about food rationing, I guess I might say, is trying to prepare, trying to have what you need. Our main goal, if we have no other main goal, is to teach people how to take what you have on your place, no matter what size it is, and try to learn how to grow something to be sustainable with. Because let's just face it, if you're not sustainable, there's a good possibility in the future that your survival rate will be a lot lower than the person who has taken the time to look toward their future. We all talk about building a future financially through the stocking up of gold, the stocking up of silver, and different things like that, so that we have something to fall back on. We talk about IRAs, IROTs, and just HMMs and all this kind of stuff to build money quickly. But there's going to come a point, it doesn't matter how much money you have, if the food is not available to you as an individual, you're not going to get it. And that will be when there will be a rude awakening, and people will say, wow, I should have been saving seeds. I should have been, instead of spending my money on vacations and entertainment for the weekends and stuff like that, I should have bought a piece of ground somewhere, and I should have been focusing on what it takes to be sustainable. I believe that will be where I believe that is our future, David. I believe that's where we're headed.
Yeah, and then the next step would go right into the economy again, because if you had the money and you just experienced that situation, but you knew they had food in a different state or a different country, and you had the financial means to get there, you would for sure pick yourself up or your family or whatever and get yourself there. But I believe part of the financial collapse is going to be to stop that from happening, because currently there's 8 billion people on the planet. And I was talking with a friend about Indonesia, because that's going to be like the honeypot of all honeypots down there, with everything's going to be, except for the volcanoes, it's got it'll have the most ideal grow condition on the planet. So if you're going to look at a country that, if you were thinking about the future to go to, Indonesia would be on the top of the list. It would be tropical all the time, abundant vegetation, plentiful rainfall, all the boxes. Volcanoes, okay, that's a negative, but if you're on the right side of the chain, whatever, you can figure out where the volcanoes would go for the last few solar minimums. They have 300 million people there now. But imagine if 200 million Americans wanted to move there with their money, and another 100 million Europeans wanted to go down there. You think that they're going to let 300 million foreigners into a country of 300 million people with opposite values, different religious beliefs, have so much more money than the locals down there? That would upset the entire balance in the economy of the entire country, just by that many foreigners coming down into a single location so quickly, within a year or two. So you can look at massive amounts of governments working together to say, you're not coming here, lock them down. And the only way I believe that could be done efficiently is a global financial collapse that's on purpose to lock people down, probably about a year before what you're talking about, where there's a realization. Now, my whole thing is 2023 and 2024, which is very close to your 2022. Because if you look at Valentina Zarkova's original work before it was changed, she had the magnetic fields going out of line at the most possible maximum canceling at 2023 to 2024, which means the effects on our Earth are going to be during that period, and then probably about 9 months after, a little lag time in there. But that 2022 to say 2024, with the four gas giants are out on one quadrant of the solar system, tugging at our planet electromagnetically. We got the sun in its declining state. Who knows what's going to happen, but it's something substantial and something significant. Because I want to come back into the EU again and the UN. Now, I've been traveling to the UK to speak and talk about the Grand Solar Minimum at several conferences over there. I get invited to fly over to talk to people about this very issue. And their whole thing was, the EU is in a very mad rush to get these 3 things completed by 2023. First thing is, it's the rapid highway response. Now, in the US, we're used to 4-lane highways, 8-lane highways going everywhere across the country. When the EU, you get to some certain countries and the highways shrink down from 4-lane highway down to a 2-lane. Well, the whole thing is, the entire network, all Eastern European countries, all Central European, Western, UK, everything, all have to have this 4-lane highway integrated system done by 2023. That's nothing more than a rapid response to the food riots within different areas around Europe that are going to be occurring probably. Secondly, the EU Unified Defense Force interoperability needs to be completed by 2023. This will include the North Africa EU neighborhood friendly policy, something like this is what they call it, where the EU can station itself across North Africa with the help of the different North African Union nations. And then at the same time, this 5G needs to be rolled out. Now, this 5G, in my opinion, is nothing more than a frequency control grid, just like you would see on the top of Humvees with the dishes out there. It's just going to be on a citywide scale. But what are the possibilities that all 3 of those must be completed by 2023 and live on January 1st, 2023? So something significant has to be happening. And you mentioned 2022. So going through that transition phase of 12 months, that's not very long. I mean, that very much fits in the profile. And my whole thing with the magnetic field is that the most canceling, at least in the first wave, 2024, we get this gradual step down. 2021, people become more aware. 2022, everybody's aware. The entire planet's aware.
Yes.
2023, all these EU things have to be implemented. 2024, we come into the biggest canceling waves magnetically. And then you can see the timeline progression. And that's only 4 years away. That's scary. It's 4 years away because Happy New Year. I remember 2018 like yesterday. Yeah, like crazy. Now see, all these UN things keep dovetailing in there, right? Like, where's this UN all in everything suddenly?
Yeah.